corners to order. If we could all stand. Doug, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If everyone would remain standing, tonight's invocation is by Pastor Sue Metcalf of the Forest Hills Church. Pastor Metcalf.
Thank you again for the honor to be here. Let's bow in prayer. Father God, we thank you for who you are, that you are a God who loves your people so much that you would send your only Son, that you are a God who loves his people so much that you would hear our needs and answer our prayers according to your will. Tonight, Lord, as this board meets, may you grant wisdom, Father, to those who will be making decisions on the behalf of other people. Father, may you grant hearts that are willing to serve and ears that are ready to hear the needs of the people that they serve. Father, we ask for these things in Jesus' holy, precious name. Amen.
Please be seated. First of all, I'd like to thank my fellow board members for electing me chairman this year. I consider that a very genuine honor and privilege, and I appreciate your confidence in me, and I hope I don't disappoint any of you. The next item on the agenda is any additions or deletions to the agenda. Hearing none. I have the proxy of Brad Morris, who won't be with us tonight. The next item on the agenda is the report on the board executive session, which was held on June 12th, 2014. The first item of business at the executive session was to elect a candidate to fill the remaining one-year term of the vacant seat on the board. The board earlier this month interviewed 5 applicants interested in the position. I'm very pleased to announce this evening that the board voted unanimously with one abstention to elect Joan Glebzinski to the board. Joan is a wellness advocate and recreation professional with 25 years of experience. She currently serves as a health and wellness consultant for Well Guided, her independent consulting business, and UltraSuede LLC. Prior work experience includes serving as the Senior Director of Health and Wellness at Walmart stores in Bentonville, Health Promotion and Life Work Manager at S.C. Johnson and Company in Racine, Wisconsin, and Health and Fitness Director at the YMCA of Greater Indianapolis. She has a bachelor's degree in corporate fitness from Western Illinois University, a master's in sports management from Indiana University, Purdue University at Indianapolis. She is one of the founding board members and current vice president of Girls on the Run of Northwest Arkansas, as well as an original member of the Bentonville and Walmart Bike Friendly Community Task Force. She also serves on the boards for Healthy U and the National Business Group on Health. Until recently, she was a member of the association's Recreation Joint Advisory Committee and the Ad Hoc Restaurant Committee. We would like to welcome Joan to the board.
Everything but the kitchen sink and join you.
Thank you very much. The second item of business at the executive session was a continuation of the discussion of the employment agreement of the general manager and a review of the legal opinion of the board's outside legal counsel. And the third item of business was an initial discussion to clarify the roles and responsibilities of the board and the general manager. The next item on the agenda is approval of minutes of the May 15th, 2014 regular board meeting. I'd entertain a motion.
Move we accept the minutes for the prayer meeting.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call for a vote.
Yes.
Next item is general manager's report. Tony?
I will
Good evening. Talk a little bit about some of the things that we had going on in the month of May. I have been giving you an update of where we are with the Total E installation, which is our new point of sale software that will cover all of membership services and all of the POS systems that we have at our different facilities that we are moving from Cogsdale and Fairways. We did install the TEI software to the SQL server. We have put selected users on the new system. We have installed the Citrix receiver on several of our client workstations. In the month of June, we hope to complete the importation of the test data. We are continuing the discovery of the processes of membership services. Again, this is all in Cogsdale now. Cogsdale was made to fit what our processes are, so we're going to see what we can do differently and certainly more efficiently with the TEI versus Cogsdale. We will continue to set up and hopefully complete all the POA staff members' logins and passwords for the new system. Then we're moving over to the Golf POS and the Tea Time system setup. And then we still, as we've been saying every month, we still believe we're on schedule for the first quarter of 2015. This is the T.H. Rogers fire. Just for your information, which I'm not sure if the board realizes this, that whenever there's a fire, anytime after hours, that we do call out the water on-call person so that they can be there in case there's any issues with any of the valves, or if there's an issue with any of the pumps, or if we have to redirect some water to try to get water flow there, since our system is not all automated. So just wanted to point that out to you. We did have 2 employees involved in an accident. This is on 340. The oncoming vehicle crossed the center line. Our employees were going this way, ended up spinning them around coming in here. So we're probably going to have to buy a new truck. I don't think this is going to be fixable. Insurance is still waiting. I was going to get to that. All were treated and released at the hospitals. They all did have to be taken in. Jumping around a lot. I guess the battery's getting low. Replacement of the fire hydrant. Another little accident here. Took out a fire hydrant that we had to go through and replace it. Just a valve installation. As we continue to expand some of the controllability of our system. In the past, where there was be one whole area that would get water pass through it, we were completely blind what water was going into this versus what was going out, so we could test areas to see which place had the most water loss. And so we continued to add new block valves out there. We mentioned, and I've shown maps before, that the galvanized water service lines we believe to be some of our biggest problems for the water loss that we have in Bella Vista, and we continue to replace those as we come across them, especially when we have to tap them. Generally, they're unsuccessful because they are in such bad shape that they crumble. Just to continue to do repairs for leaks. As we've been talking about, we're working on different ADA issues around the village as we try to bring everything up to compliance over a period of time. Kingsdale Pool. Our pools, of course, are aging, and we have leaks quite often here, and of course they're all under concrete, so they're interesting to find as well as to repair, because there's just a whole maze of water lines running all under here. We did add a sprinkler system to our Highlands cart shed. We had to refurbish the Kingsdale pump. As you can see, of course, with the chlorine there, the pumps do wear out fairly quickly. Highland septic system, we had an issue with it. We had some termite problems at the Highland cart shed. We are replacing the carpet for a miniature golf. This is something we have to do about every 3 or 4 years, as well as do repairs for some of the little attractions as a part of it. This is at Met Field, another replacement, or picture of replacement. Mechanical room here at Branchwood, we had to do some replacement with some issues there. Highland storm drain, again, I've just show you little things that are just typical of the type of things that we do during the month. Just we have a lot of storm drains that we have at our facilities. We had to redo our ladders because they weren't safe at our pools, and so we redid some of these. Restaurant equipment, we've talked about a number of times that our restaurant equipment is aging. A lot of it dates back to 80s, and so we are going to continue to have problems, and we are getting to the point that we can't find replacement parts for some, and we are robbing from other facilities old pieces of equipment that we've found that we may still have, like at the basement of the yacht club or whatever. We did go through and repaint all the signs in the village. I think we're about through. Painting all went from white to black, and while we were at it, we repainted everything. We took all the signs down and just redid them, fixed some places that were rotten.
I'm sorry, just to point out, there's one that goes to Granton Park, and the westbound side of the sign is repainted, the eastbound side is not. Just wanted to point that out.
Okay, I will. Yeah, we added that eastbound sign because originally the sign, they never thought anybody would look for Granton Park if they were going east. So we did put a little plaque up there, and they probably forgot that. So I'll try to remember to get that done. Thank you. The Kingsdale Children's Pool, we had to replace the pump there as well. Veterans Wall of Honor, put in a new water line, as well as a irrigation, redid the irrigation system. A backflow printer that we put at the Kingswood Golf Maintenance Shop. We had to add extra parking out at the Highlands Trap Field because it was getting so congested out there that it was just, the park filled up, especially when we had ATAC or maybe school events there. We continue, of course, to mow and to repair the roads around Bella Vista Heights, which are not a part of the city. Of course, with the way the grass is growing now, mowing is a big chore and a continuing chore. Mowing the dams, we also, of course, have to repair the berms and the fencing in different areas at the gun range routinely. We, of course, did all the prep work for Paddles in Paradise, which had to be canceled due to the weather. We are clearing for the Highlands Trap Field. We have talked about doing an additional field there, which we still are getting at least prep done, and we would need to further discuss the need to go ahead with this at this point in time. We, of course, are saving the root balls and parts of the trees. These will be used for the remediation of the Tanyard Creek area. We continue, as we've been talking, to address dead trees on common property around homes and around cul-de-sacs and such, some of which are actually posing a danger to a structure, some of which are just because of aesthetics. And we only take out those that are posing a danger to a structure unless they're in a cul-de-sac. Just as continue just to show you some of the things that we do, all the landscaping, which I believe is one of the things that adds to Bella Vista. We always have a really nice landscaping done by our employees around our facilities. Moving on to golf, I wanted to show you where we were on May to date. As you can see, we're about 3,500 or 2,500 rounds, 37 or so hundred rounds low on May year to date. Was just giving you an update. The country club pump station has taken us much longer than we had thought it would. We could not get the boring done for the piers. These piers were going down to bedrock, as you can see. They're going down pretty deep. The contractor, his sub did not show up. He could not get him to come in, and so it took him a few weeks to find someone else. So we are, as we've talked about earlier, we're still looking at between mid and late July. According to how hot and dry that gets us, then the more precarious the greens and the fairways will be on the country club. This is just some of the progress made. This is the wet well, of course. Another one to put the pier in, doing the wall, base, or excuse me, the base. Here the base is. Now they have put up the form for the walls, and they poured those today. So we are finally at least moving forward, but that's going to take 7 days to cure before we can even move the pallet in there, the skid that's got the pumps and the motors on there, so that we can then test them. We did, because of the unreliability and the debris we were picking up, or sediment from the place we were pulling from the emergency pump, we put in a new line and moved the emergency pump down to the clean out area of the wet well. So now we're at least getting clean water, and it is more reliable. The spring mixer also had the Grab It Golf Classic. Of course, this weekend we have the Cancer Challenge. We had the Poultry Federation last week. So we're on now that we pretty well will have events of some type every weekend for the rest of the year, or excuse me, the rest of the season. We have started doing more demo days with the different vendors over at our Tanyard Creek facility. One of the pictures of us working on replacing some of the sod from the winter kill, although we are seeing that a lot of those places are starting to fill in, but some of the areas were in such bad shape we felt that there needed to be some sod put in it. Of course, with the way our places are, they're all in low areas. We have a lot of drainage issues where they just stay wet. Of course, this makes the grass subject to diseases. Landscape improvements on the golf course. Replace the cart wash pad at Scottsdale. Just ongoing course maintenance where we're spraying. And we did do some drill and fill, which is a much more aggressive work to try to aerate the area here. This one goes, puts in much larger holes, backfills with sand, and we're trying to poke holes in there so that we can get the greens to drain better. So this is just something that to try to get through that thatch that builds up. Here we are doing just vent aeration, again, kind of for the same purpose, but a lot less aggressive. We completed our springtime, nighttime electrofishing samples. There's just a catfish there that they sampled. A couple, as you can see, very nice looking red ear. We continued to fight the filamentous algae on our lakes. Our weed boat, our sprayer unit broke down. The pump broke. We had to get parts and stuff to fix it, so we borrowed a unit from the golf courses so we could use that to continue to treat the shorelines where it was available. And we also hired a contractor to come in twice to do some spraying as well to try to get it under control. We are continuing to see Lake Ann Fishing Dock become more and more popular. It's a really nice dock. The first year or so, it didn't seem like it was being used quite so much, but now it's used very regularly.
Tommy, before you move off that, I wanted to say that the Fly Tires want to thank you for allowing us to put a plaque on that dock in honor of Tom Carbarnes, who recently passed away. Appreciate that.
Yes, and that was the first time I was aware of that when I got that email. And so Vern will be working with you guys to get that.
It was sometime in July.
Good. Just thought this was interesting. We did, this gentleman here over at Lake Brittany caught a 23-inch, 4.8-pound golden trout. And so this is actually a, I don't know if you'd call it a mutation or something of just a rainbow, but that's what it is. But it's very pretty and certainly a very nice size one. We, of course, always take part in the career day at Cooper Elementary. Here, we also take part in the annual outing that Baker Elementary has with their second graders with the Bella Vista Fly Tires. I have been there on occasion, and it's a really cool event because it's a lot of the times these children are catching their first fish at one of these events. So it's a really nice thing that the Fly Tires have been doing for many years. We have our Spring Senior Health Fair at Reardon Hall. Armed Forces Day celebration at Reardon Hall. And that concludes my report. Is there any questions?
I've got a couple of questions and a comment. I've had a few questions about the income statement from some members, and I want to direct your attention to under income we have categories that list amounts, $9,000, $32,000, $97,000, and then you get down to the bottom where it says other, and it says $1.4 million. Now, I know what's in there. It's the proceeds from the sale of the city buildings, at least part of it. The other part's down in depreciation. Until we get it off the books, it's going to stay that way. But just to avoid confusion, and it kind of raises eyebrows, and for some it may look suspicious, could we just make another category and say income from the sale of the buildings and put the 1.3 or whatever it is in there? Is that a big deal, or is that?
Well, it is changing the formatting of our reports, which we try to keep consistent. We could put a note or some type of a highlighting box or something that would explain what's going on there, because it will just be something that'll appear and it'll disappear forever, I guess.
The other thing is when we look at the reserves, restricted and unrestricted reserves listing, there are some projects in there that I call derelict projects. They've been around since 2011, relatively small amounts, and I'm hoping that when we do the budget this year, we can take a good look at that and see if some of them, we can't just move the money from restricted to unrestricted or move it somewhere else. We're clearly not doing anything with it. They've been here since 2011.
There are some things that are outstanding, but certainly the directional signs, we've been holding on that because there was up in the air all this time.
When we redo the budget for next year,
Okay.
let's look at that. Yep. And finally, the statistics on our safety and workers' comps claim status looks really good again. Workers' comp 0, OSHA recordable 1, OSHA non-recordable 1, OSHA days away cases 0. About the same as we've been year after year after year, the same as last year. And your guys are to be congratulated for really doing a remarkable job of keeping a safe environment here. And it's even more remarkable when you consider they've done it without the benefit of a safety engineer on staff full time.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to get that.
I just have a couple comments on the activity report on the first page under membership services. We had asked them to keep kind of a running indicator of new property owners that have bought property in Bella Vista. In the month of May, we had 127 new property owners. That's actually pretty interesting. And then the other thing that I'd point out in schedule, where is the activity report? Here it is. Attachment 1, which is the statistics. We have 14 new homes through the month of May. If that trend continues, we may be in the hopefully upper 30s or 40. That would be wonderful if we could do that. So any other comments regarding the general manager's report?
provide any context around the 127 new property owners versus year-to-date, or
Well, that's a new,
maybe it hadn't been tracking?
Yeah, we just started.
exactly, we
tracking
just started tracking.
About 3 months ago.
Right, so that's relatively new. The idea obviously is to identify whether we're turning property over when it transfers to existing property owners or whether they're new folks that are becoming members. Mike?
On the new starts, I've heard that several of those are spec houses. Do you know, Tommy, how many of those are spec versus custom built
I
homes?
don't know that. I had heard also that there were some spec houses going on in Bella Vista now.
Which is unusual.
Yes, that, we've not seen those for about 5 years.
Okay.
Like there are 3 in the Pimlico neighborhood that are spec. There are 3 in the Pimlico neighborhood that are spec houses.
Any other comments on the general manager's report? The next item is response to previous open forum comments. At the May board meeting, there were several comments made at the open forum. One had to do with a request that the board work with the city of Bella Vista on entrance signs, and we're going to get a little bit of a report from Ruth about the signage. What I do want to point out is that Mr. Bailey and I met with Mayor Frank Anderson and Chris Sunison on May 28th. And we talked about a number of activities where the POA and the city of Bella Vista could cooperate. The 3 areas that are in the context of what we're working on have to do with water testing, the desire by the city of Bella Vista to put together a stormwater discharge plan, and the fact that we have our lake ecology lab that has water testing capabilities. And so what we're working on is some joint effort where the city designates areas that they're going to need water sampling, and then we will do the sampling and then bill the city, and hopefully it'll end up being a lower amount of money that they would necessarily have to pay if they went outside. So we get some benefit to use our existing assets, and they get the benefit of having someone that's acquainted with the area doing the testing. The other is GIS information. The city gets aerial photographs, and we have the GIS software system. And what we're going to do is sort of trade with them so that we end up with some of their photography that we can use for our purposes, and they end up having some additional access to the GIS software. And third area is signage. And Ruth will go into a little more detail, but just basically what we looked at is the monument signs that are on the highway that we're looking at having rebuilt would be part of the entrance signs that the city is looking at. They're also interested in an entrance sign of a smaller degree on the east side of the village on Highway 340, and on either end of 279, one near Macadoodles, one up by the Conoco. And those 2 monument signs and 3 entrance signs would be part of a package that would end up being looked at. And then what we would look at is some arrangement where we share the cost of those between the POA and the city, and also the maintenance and upkeep. So there is some progress in the area of cooperation and activities with the city. The only other item that was mentioned in last month's open forum had to do with the slow wake buoy at the London Landing entrance to Lake Windsor, and that's been replaced and it's not an issue. So that's the open forum. Now, next item is open forum. Anyone who wants to address the board, please come up, identify yourself, and we're happy to listen to any questions or any comments that anyone wishes to make. Yes, sir.
My name is Pat Lowry, and I am a resident of Bella Vista as of October the 6th. During the process of the recent assessment increase, the lead up to and then the ultimate vote, I talked to a number of people about their position with regard to the assessment increase. Certainly we had a wide diversity of opinion, but one of the issues that clouded the discussion was the attitude of people towards the board. Those people, I think, who are more knowledgeable, that I would consider more knowledgeable about the board, recognized the efforts of the board to be transparent, recognized that the board was trying to do the best job they could possibly do, and was very forthcoming in sharing with the community what was going on. Those people who knew less about the board were suspicious. And I think the board of directors falls under the general umbrella of a governmental body, although we know it's not. And we all know what the attitude of the public is towards the government. There's suspicion, there is misunderstanding, there is anger, there's frustration, all directed at anybody who resembles a governing body. In Mr. Teal's letter in the Vista today, he did not address that directly, but alluded to it on several occasions. One of which was when he talked about the fact that the board did not take a non-disclosure pledge, a secrecy pledge. Another was when he talked about the fact that there was going to be a committee of the board to look at the best proposal going forward that could be brought before the community in lieu of the previous, a revote on the previous issue. I think one of the things that we're missing out on, though, the idea of an independent ad hoc committee is a good idea. But I think one thing that we're missing out on is the public will see that as, once again, insiders deciding what we're going to do about assessment increase. I think we're missing a perfect opportunity to bring some people from the community who were staunchly opposed to the increase in the assessment into the fold. Let them be part of that ad hoc committee. Let them sit in consultation with the members of the board who are going to be on that committee, in addition to Mr. Bailey, and I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Mr. Mitchell.
Mr. Mitchell.
Dwayne Mitchell.
Okay. But we need to get people involved so that they understand that they're going to have significant input into the process. There were general meetings prior to the last assessment vote. And I don't think anybody came away from those meetings saying, I was heard, I understand, because the same proposal was then proposed. Had there been radical changes to that proposal, they might have said, I have been listened to, and somebody has taken action to revise the proposal so that my voice has been heard. I'm not suggesting that, and we all know who I'm talking about, the most vocal person arguing against the assessment increase be included. In fact, I think that that's probably a wrong direction to take. Because I think what has to happen is that the persons involved in this group, in this ad hoc committee, have to at least be open to the idea that there is a problem that needs to be solved, and they need to come up with a solution. I believe that the person I'm speaking about doesn't want to solve any problems. He simply wants to tear the board down, get rid of the board, and we all know about that. But I think all of us, you especially members of the board, could recognize people within the community who have spoken against the assessment increase, but still are open to the fact that we need to solve a problem. And I think you should include them in that ad hoc committee, and that the ad hoc committee should be an odd number of people, should consist of Mr. Bailey, Mr. Mitchell, members of the board, plus members from the community, who will be recognized by the members of the community, who will be recognized by the community as a whole as their spokesperson in these negotiations, in these discussions. And then they'll say, okay, the proposal that's being made that we're going to vote on has been developed in such a way that everybody recognizes that their voices have been heard. I want to share one thing with this regard. I heard an interview the other night with Jay Leno. They were talking about him, I think it was on 60 Minutes, you may have seen it. Jay Leno was talking about how he was leaving his show, and everybody has to recognize, whether you like him or not, he was the top-rated nighttime talk show host. And he said, you know, when I put together a show, I'd have some silly jokes, I've had some innuendo, I had some sophisticated jokes, and I had some clownish jokes, and I had some silly things in there, but I had an audience to address. I had to address everybody in the audience so that everybody came away thinking, aha, he's talking to me. The same thing is true with this proposal. The people that are here who are, I'm sorry for going on so long. The people that are here, that live in this community, who don't take part in any amenities, who have lived here for 30, 40 years, who are in their 80s, who don't get out of the house, you know, they've got to look at the proposal and say, there's something in it for me. And until they do, until everybody sees that there's something in it for them, they're going to vote it down. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. John? Yes. Yeah, I have something to say, but please be my guest.
I actually happened to chair that committee, and we had our first meeting about a week ago. And I can assure you that anybody that comes will be heard. Probably 15, 20% of the people that talked at that last meeting were members of the audience. Not only were they allowed to talk in the open forum, we allow them to talk through the entire meeting. They're not just guests, they're active participants. In the next, this weekend, we are going to the swimming pools to talk to people or parents of small children because we don't know what they think. Sunday, we have a meeting here at the country club, I think at 2 o'clock. And if you know anybody that has an opinion and would like to be involved, we strongly invite them to come because we need to know what they think.
I don't want to be argumentative, but I will say that that attitude is not sufficient because they are voicing opinions, and yet they're not forming the idea. They have no direct voting input into what the assessment proposal is going to be. They cannot rely on your goodwill. They cannot rely on the goodwill of the board of directors. They have to be involved, intimately involved, in the activities of that panel, of that discussion. They have to be voting members. They have to be not, oh, I'd like to see this, or I don't want to see this. But they have to be, let's put it down on paper, and this is the wording we're going to use. And they have to say, yes, I agree with that wording. They have to be that involved. Public forums don't do anything except allow people to blow off steam. They're not giving input. They're talking, but they're not making decisions. And you have to be careful. I support the board. I voted in favor of the assessment increase. I talked to everybody I could think of about voting for the assessment increase. I think you're doing a great job. But there are a bunch of people who don't, 7,000 I believe, who don't believe you. And
If
the
you know-
only way you can get them to get into the process is by making them an active member.
If you know any of those people that would like to be active members, we're going to work on our first draft on June 30th. And I don't know that I have the power to change the board's opinion on how ad hoc committees are set up, because I think it's way beyond my privy. But if they'd like to sit here, I think, are we at 10 o'clock, 10:30 in the morning that day? I'm sorry, I don't know the time of that. It's way down my schedule.
It may be, what I'm suggesting may be totally outside of the realm of the bylaws of the board of directors. But
I don't know if I
simply
could
say
answer
that
that.
if there's any way that, I want us to continue to be a viable body, a viable community. We have too much to offer for us to be, to have to succumb to. I'm going to say a couple more things.
Okay.
You know,
And then I'm going to cut you off.
okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
But, it's like, something like this, where you say to people, we're going to grandfather you in. If you're over 85 years old and you live in the community, we're going to say to you, you will not experience an assessment increase. Something. Where people see that they're getting something. I apologize. I thank you for your time and your consideration. And this is my first board meeting, as you probably and so.
Sunday, 2 o'clock out of the main room.
Thank you, Pat. The only other thing that I would mention, and I don't want to trigger another return to the microphone on Pat's part, but
You can leave it now, Dr. Lowry.
yeah, since the annual meeting, there have been a number of opposition folks, as we can sort of commonly refer to them, that have been in contact with one or several of the board members. And there is some dialogue that has been developed. Now, some of your suggestions are things that I think we need to talk about and sort of see how we might or might not be able to work it into the system. But I can assure you that the fact that people have opinions different than what we had included in the assessment plan that went out for a vote to the membership have resulted in a differing viewpoint and will probably be reflected in what we ultimately, hopefully, will come up with when we formulate the plan. And I think you'll see that there is a very real sense from a number of us on the board that what those folks have articulated needs to be incorporated in our final version. So there is an ongoing discussion, and we'll keep the folks that have indicated a desire to be involved, and see where we end up. But I appreciate you coming, I appreciate your insight, and we'll see what we can come up with to make this thing work. Okay. Anyone else? All right. That closes open forum. Old business, Bell Vista signage. Ruth?
We're going to make this brief. Last week, or a couple weeks ago, Chris Henderson from the city and Alderman Becky Morgan met with Kathy Ferguson, POA, and myself, and we hashed out a lot of different things. And one of the goals that we came up with for the entry signs was affordable, updated look, and would stand out, something that's going to show. Location, in addition to ones that Charlie just talked about, one thing we did talk about is what happens if and when the bypass ever gets done. Where does that sign go, and how soon is that going to happen? Is that going to affect us, or everything? The messaging that we came up with is pretty well decided, and I think Mayor Anderson had it in the paper the other day, that it would simply say, welcome to Bella Vista, instead of both entities being put on there, the city of and the POA property. The site, we went out and had very questions about those two site locations. One of the problems with the northern area is it's so far back, you've almost got to be on it to see it. And we looked at it, went out, looked at it, and decided that probably cutting some foliage around there would help considerably. And the area we looked at, it looked like that they would be very willing to cut that foliage because I think it was Cooper area, so it would not be a problem. But that would be one area that would be a concern. The other area, we went to the south and looked at the area down there. The location is ideal. You can see it from a long ways away. You come almost after you get past Walgreens down there, you can see the signs. We thought that was a good location. During the visit, we expressed some concern about the integrity of the bases, and we agreed that that was something we need more information before we went any further. So Kathy is contacting the Maintenance Construction Division, and Chris is contacting the Building Department. The two groups are going to go out and take a look at it to see if it's stable, durable, and something we can use. If not, we need to know that up front, whether we have to scratch that and start over. I gave them the sign, or the information from the lakes, the golf, and the rec committees, and Chris is plugging those into the master plan of the Wayfinder signs. Many of those are already on the list. It's just a matter of money to put the signs up, and he is checking to see if those were copyrighted or whether we can get other signs cheaper that look very similar to it, so it would be cheaper to do. Other than that, I think it pretty well sums it up. Kathy? Do we have any additions?
Any other input from the board?
We are meeting this week for coming up for a second meeting. We should have some of this looked at then.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Business items. First item is the committee appointments with Joan, and you're going to have to help me with your last name, Joan.
You said it pretty close.
I was
Lebzinski.
Lebzinski. Yeah, there were a number of similar names in the Milwaukee area when we lived there, and I struggled with them also.
Just slur the middle, because ski is always
Lebzinski.
on any one of them.
Lebzinski. I haven't added you to any of the committee assignments yet, so you and I will have to talk and determine what your interests might be and where we might be able to fit you in. So currently what we have as board members assigned to committees for the Audit Committee, Linda Leffler, Brad Morris, and myself. Communications Committee is Mike Erickson, Ruth Hatcher, Linda Leffler, John Nuttall, and myself. Planning is Bob Brooks, Ruth Hatcher, Brad Morris, and John. And Rules and Regs is Dave Barfield, Bob Brooks, Mike Erickson, and Charlie, myself. So those are the committee assignments at this point, and then we will figure out where Joan might fit in. Let's see. The next item on new business is the assessment vote, which is what Mr. Lowry is interested in. So, John, if you could maybe fill us.
Good afternoon. We had our first assessment ad hoc committee meeting on June the 9th. We started out with a discussion trying to figure out why the last assessment plan failed. With input from the people on the committee plus our audience, we came up with a pretty good list to start. Reduction in fees was not well received, especially for the golf fee reduction. Assessment plan was clear and logical, but the reasons people voted were very emotional. Many of the people talked about we have to determine what people are willing to provide or willing to approve. We have to answer the question, what can the PAA do? What will the PAA do with the additional money? And will the money take care of the members' needs? And how will the increased assessments improve things for the members? We need to make sure we're able to deliver on any promises we make in support of the assessment increase. Was a short conversation, actually a little more than a short conversation about what people thought they would approve. The $5 number came up for improved lots. If the POA can approve, the money will be used widely. Groups that opposed, this was an interesting conversation, groups that opposed the assessment increase selected community influencers and we let them dominate the discussion instead of us controlling the session. We went on to talk about the new plan and the scope, and we were relatively agreed that it would probably be a much shorter scope. The number of 3 years was brought up. That will, of course, be part of what we talk about next week. We are targeting our vote for August the 15th. This will give us a chance this will give us a chance to have a second election if we get close and we don't have a quorum. We have a full schedule of public meetings. They're all written down here too, for that would be great. Kingsdale Pool on the 21st at 1 o'clock. Metfield Pool at 3 o'clock. And the big purpose there was there were a lot of non-votes. And we believe these are people that we did not get to vote. And we'd like to find out why they didn't vote and what's it going to take for us to get them to vote. There's several of us going out for that. We have a meeting on Sunday the 22nd in the Country Club main room. And we're trying to schedule 2 meetings for July 24th and July 27th at Reardon Hall. There's a trails meeting that one day, and we'd either like to be right before it or right after it, so we'll have some extra people there. Hopefully we can get a few more people involved in the process. On the POA website, on the very top block on the right-hand side, there is a brand new survey about what you voted for and why, and we encourage everybody to take it. It's a good opportunity for those that don't feel comfortable coming for a meeting to let us know what you thought and why you thought it. We would like to take everybody's input in consideration. We did get a very good lesson in social media, and I'm sorry I forgot the young lady's name that gave it to us. We will have a social media plan for the next election because we really missed the boat on that one. Then we also had a conversation about the Arkema land, and the general consensus is the real estate market has got a lot better off than it used to be, and that maybe it's time that we suggested to the board that they consider if this is the right time. Our next meeting is on June 30th. We're going to work on our first draft of the plan, and everybody is welcome. I call on anybody when they ask a question, no matter when it is. Open forum is not the only time you're allowed to speak if you're from the general public. So if you can get here on June 30th, we'd like to have you.
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock, thank you.
Mike?
I just want to comment that the ad hoc committee makes a recommendation to the board. They don't vote on what the actual assessment plan will be. That's a board function. But the committee, and I think you made some very good points about participation, more than just sitting there and talking. And I think one of the things we should do is and I'm not on that committee, I purposely wanted to see some new blood on here, come up with some new ideas. But I think when we identify an item that is recommended by someone in the community rather than someone on the board, we should identify that. And somewhere when it's presented to the board, identify those items that were presented by people from the community, not just people from the board, so that the community will realize that we are, in fact, listening and taking action based on their input.
That's a very good point. What we follow as a board process is if there is a suggestion or any type of correspondence from a member to the board, it comes to the board website, and unless there's a particular reason why an individual board member who has a particular expertise in an area or a regular activity in that particular area, most of the responses end up coming through chairman, which is me. And what I would be very comfortable doing over the next several days is going back into my archives and identifying those particular suggestions that have come from individual members that we are then identifying as the source for why particular aspects of what we're looking at have different elements that came from suggestions from the membership. I'm a little hesitant to put a name with an idea unless I have permission. But I'm sure that there are a number of people that I could contact that would have no trouble at all saying, yeah, I'm more than happy to do that. So I will follow up with that.
I just want to avoid the perception that we are only interested in things that are generated from this board or from board committees, and avoid the not invented here syndrome. So that's a good idea, Charlie. I'd like to see you. And we've all gotten emails from people with suggestions, so we can lay them out by name. And again, if you want to ask permission to have names, that's fine, but a lot of times we carry forward messages from the membership to the board in these committees and stuff, but we don't always give out credit. Sometimes
Yeah,
we're credit
that's
to
what we
do.
need to do. Any other comments? Okay. Committee reports, rules and regulations. Mike?
Yeah, our last meeting, we have submitted policy 8.17, which is guidelines for entering into contracts. This is the second reading, and I would like to propose that we accept the new policy 8.17 as written. It's brief, so I'll just say it's the policy of the Bella Vista Village POA that all contracts or agreements obligating the POA to an expenditure of over $100,000 must be approved by the Board of Directors prior to their execution. Upon approval by the Board of Directors, the General Manager is authorized to enter into such contracts or agreements on behalf of the Bella Vista Village POA. I'd like to make a motion that we accept this new policy as stated.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. Call for a vote.
Motion is to accept the new policy 8.17 as written. All in favor? Any opposed?
Okay. All right. Anything else from rules and regs, Mike?
Not at this time.
Okay. The Communications Committee met on June 9th. We had a couple of representatives from the Bella Vista ambassadors who were very appreciative to the fact that we had helped them with printing new business cards, and they also indicated that all of last year they had 6 contacts from individuals requesting some involvement of the ambassadors in learning more about Bella Vista. In the month of May, they had 4. And obviously having ambassadors listed on the POA website has helped with identifying that that's available. They're also looking at having individuals from the Tennis Association and from Fly Tires also being incorporated with the ambassadors group. So that seems to be an ongoing activity that's generating a little interest on behalf of people that would like to get a little better acquainted with the Bella Vista community. We did a member survey and evaluation of restaurants the end of January into February of this year. That survey results were put together in a format that included a identification of the most frequent restaurants that people generally patronize in the area, and then a list of just general comments. We sat down with Papa Mike's on May 22nd, went through the summary of that survey and gave them a copy so they have an opportunity to review what members have included in comments. And we also met with Cafe Michi on May 23rd. We also talked a little bit about the fact that with some of the catering activities that have been arranged here through Cafe Michi with outside groups, that there seems to be a perception that because the restaurant is in the Bella Vista Country Club clubhouse, that description describes a members-only, limited access restaurant. So we need to promote the fact that these are open to the public. And I know on the Cafe Michi website, there's now a little banner that talks about open to the public and that type of thing. There was some discussion about having some materials available at Cooper Chapel to identify another Fay Jones building in the area, which is a Country Club building, and we've got some logistics to kind of work through that particular area. The Promoting Bella Vista Task Force was involved with the project with the city to identify who's responsible for what activities. That was the little flyer that went out in the water bill a month or so ago. One of the other things we did is we prepared a little outline of comparison of building costs in Bella Vista versus Rogers and Bentonville, and we provided that to the Northwest Arkansas Home Builders Association, and they have posted the little please consider Bella Vista builders because we're a good opportunity for you as one of the items on their newsletter that goes out electronically monthly to the members, along with the little outline of the comparison. We also had talked a little bit about the role of the ACC in permitting and activities that involve either remodeling or construction in the village. And Brad Morris and I had met with Buddy Vernetti from the ACC about a month or so ago and talked to him a little bit about whether there would be a way that some of the restrictive covenants might end up being more consistently enforced than the current practice that we have. With the idea that maybe there's an opportunity to maybe have the city consider taking on some of those responsibilities in the context of ordinances and that sort of thing. Buddy told us that he needed to get a little direction from Cooper Communities, who basically is the entity that he's sort of working with, and it's the one that has the ultimate responsibility for enforcing the restrictive covenants. We met, Brad Morris and I met with Nip Brasseur at Cooper on June 13th, and just had actually a very productive discussion, more about his view and his long experience with not only Bella Vista Village, but other Cooper communities around the country, and what they have experienced as far as assessment increase votes, and some success, some lack of success. And some of the items that Pat Lowry mentioned were very consistent with what Nip Brasseur explained to us also. So I think we're hearing kind of the same sort of thing. And so at this point, what the indication from Cooper is that if there's some interest in having either the POA or the city end up with some enforcement consistent with the current restrictive covenants, they wouldn't have any objection to that. Obviously, on our side, I'm not sure that I want to get into enforcing restrictive covenants. So that may be a discussion in light of our better relationship with the city, that we would end up maybe sitting down with them at an appropriate time and talking. So let's see. We talked about coordinating with the realtors on a more more regular basis. And Linda Lloyd, who was at our meeting, offered to serve as sort of a liaison so we can route things through her to the Northwest Arkansas Board of Realtors. And let's see, we talked about the communication of the dissolution of the POA and transfer of amenities article, and that was published in yesterday's weekly Vista. So that's basically the communication report. Okay. Any joint advisory committee reports?
Golf met Wednesday, the 11th of June. The golf rounds are obviously down, but it was certainly pointed out that good weather brought golfers, so bad weather brought no golfers. Grass was being sodded on the winter kill areas. However, rain did delay cutting some of the sod and laying some of the sod, so some of the prep areas were there, noticeable by people, and they questioned what was going on. But as soon as the sod came in, they would be laid on the various areas. Jake Grasbeck, who represents the country club golf course, each member has a golf course that they represent, and he did a 3-year recap of the improvements of the country club hole by hole of the last 3 years that they've done. Most of it been done by volunteers and some of the help of the workers on there with different items, and it was very interesting. And if you get a chance to look at the minutes of the golf advisory, it'd be well worth your time because it was quite a bit done by the volunteers. New picnic area was added to Scottsdale number 18, and that also was by volunteers. So I think that we're getting areas that people are interested in and helping out. And the one at Dogwood is put on hold for right now, the signage, et cetera, but that will be worked on too this next month. So.
The Recreation Joint Advisory Committee met on June 9th at the Branchwood facility. And just a couple highlights. There was, some discussion of the increasing interest in pickleball and the fact that the pickleball court out in Metfield has some surface issues that apparently some of the players aren't really happy with. And what they were looking at doing is seeing if there were times where the Reardon Tennis Facility might have some access for pickleball. Then the other thing we looked at was the current basketball court. It's just a little bit south of where the tennis court is. Could possibly, and I'm using that very loosely, possibly be considered as something that could potentially be marked as a pickleball court, because I think it's large enough. That's maybe something.
We did that with the Branchwood one. I'm not sure if that one, we would have to check to see if it's large enough.
Yeah, the people that were more knowledgeable than I was walked off what a standard pickleball court is and seemed to think that that might work, but I have no clue. I'm the first one to admit that. So.
There would be some issues because they really wanted theirs fenced, so we spent quite a bit of money.
That was a fence issue too.
And that would be a problem for the basketball to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have to see, we would really have to look into the whole thing.
Charlie, can I
Yes.
add a little bit to that? You were really being kind when you said the surfaces are not desirable.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those have cracks in them that actually have a gift shop at the bottom.
Okay.
They're terrible shape, dangerous even. Clem will tell you that nearly all of the pickleball courts and the tennis courts were not constructed properly to begin with.
With no foundation.
It's just a
Yeah, it's a
never-ending
never-ending
job
battle.
of resurfacing and waiting for the cracks again next year. To do those properly, they're going to have to be removed, and it'll be a very expensive proposition, but pickleball is one of the fastest growing activities for retirees. There was a special on 60 Minutes, you may have seen it a couple of months ago. There are tournaments mainly based in Florida. There's even a national tournament going on in Florida. So it is a popular activity. And, so it's something we can.
Yeah, we need to kind of look at that. Then the other thing that was discussed, and Joan has a little bit more information about this, is a process the Recreation Joint Advisory Committee is going through and coming up with a white paper for the Branchwood Golf Course land. Can you share a little bit of that with us?
Yes, this has been an ongoing discussion with the rec committee for the last several months. Due to the history of Branchwood Golf Course and the damage that was added to it last summer with the flood. So there is a small subcommittee of the Joint Advisory Committee that has been working, and at the last meeting, we actually had a couple of community members that came out to speak about it. And the net is we are making a proposal in a white paper that will be coming forth to the board, I assume, by next month's meeting.
Next month's meeting.
It's being drafted as we speak.
Mike?
Just wanted to comment, I got some feedback from some of the people in the Branchwood area, Tommy. People came out, did some mowing, it looks a lot better. There was a lot of complaints, but they did a good job, and I got a lot of good feedback from people thanking you for the action to get that mowed. I'm just curious now, I noticed you filled up the pond. Have you had any luck finding where the leak is in the pond?
I think it was day before yesterday, I believe it was Tuesday, that I talked to Keith about it, and we were going to shut the pump off. We were going to let it run for a little bit. We've got it filled up. We've got it staked. We're going to shut the pump off, see how long it takes it to drop and to what level it drops. And then that should give us a little bit more idea, because the history says, for people who've been here a long time, that there is a leak there in that pond. We've been told that it has been grouted in the past, but there is still a leak there. So we're going to try to just determine what it is. We're also, as a separate issue, looking into aeration of that pond. Because with its size and its depth, no matter if we keep it full, it's going to continue to have an algae problem. So we are also looking into options and cost and how to get power down there and the cost of that as well. And so there's quite a bit of activity around Branchwood, and that we will have some more recommendations that will be coming forward, because we certainly don't have any money to do anything with the aeration of the pond, or if we have to repair the pond. But you know, it's our belief that no matter what happens to Branchwood, that pond is still going to be a basic part of that plan, and so we think it needs to be fixed.
Any other comments? Any other Joint Advisory Committee reports?
Yes, I went to the Lakes Committee report on June 18th and got a tremendous lesson in what I didn't know about lakes. I was very happy to see that you included Vern in the manager's report. It seemed like a couple of the other guys went there, and he was very well received. Not sure if it's because he had a boat, but he was well received. For anybody that doesn't know, we do a tremendous amount of work on the dams here, keeping them safe and keeping them mowed and keeping them maintained. And it was quite an education exactly how much work is involved in keeping one of those up. And it's something, if you're interested in that, you should probably take a minute and look at Darrell and Vern's report from last week. It's on their website. On the website, it was quite interesting. The one thing that I did want to say something about that was fish cleaning stations. And if you're a fisherman, they're kind of nasty and dirty, and we could use a little help keeping them clean. So if you're one of those guys that's out there, please kick in your 2 bits worth of effort and help the lake rangers do a good job of keeping them nice and pretty and neat.
Any other comments? The next General Manager Board for Thursday meeting will be held Thursday, July 3rd at 8:30 in the Country Club Board meeting room. It's a closed discussion meeting. The next Board of Directors work session will be held on Thursday, July 10th at 8 a.m. in the Country Club Board meeting room. And the next Board of Directors regular meeting will be held on Thursday, July 17th, 6:30 in the Country Club meeting room. I want to remind everyone that there is a public input meeting on Sunday, the 22nd, here in the kind of the outside meeting area at Cafe Amici at 2 p.m. And then we will get announcements out regarding other input sessions in the next weeks, within the next week. So, Gabe?
One other reminder,
Mm-hmm.
the 24th is the public input
That's
meeting
fine. I was-
for the Trails Master Plan. We really do need a lot of people to show up and provide some input to that.
It's 6:30. The Trails input meeting is 6:30 on Tuesday, June 24th at Reardon Hall. So again, we encourage anyone who's interested to attend. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? We're adjourned.